7 men stood around the pentagram, one at each of the 5 points of the unholy star, and 2 more by the altar. Each man was cloaked in a black robe, and an aura of shadow that clung to them like oil. The sacrilegious chant echoed off the stony walls of the chamber. Foul texts were inscribed thereon, their words unreadable to any sane man. Words of protection, words of binding. Deep in the grooves of each inscription was a dark residue that shone rust-red as it caught the candlelight from the pentagram. The candlelight also caught the blade in the Magister's hand. The chanting accelerated, syllables streaming out of the mouths of the hooded figures, unknowable phrases that seemed to coil through the air as they left the cultists' mouths, like the smoke rising from the candles. The knife flashed, and the goat that had been laying entranced upon the altar started gushing bright red blood. "Baal-Khazar, Baal-Khazar, we summon you!" The final words rang out, and then silence. For a moment the cultists stood there, and from the way their hoods turned fractionally towards their neighbours, you might almost think they were looking for reassurance. Their feet shifted uncertainly. Then the candles flared, casting distorted shadows of the 7 cultists across the walls, before dying down again so dim that the darkness almost swallowed the chamber. There was a soft noise, as of someone letting go a breath. Then, "All right, I'm here. What do you want?" The candles flickered into life again. There were no longer 7 figures in the room. Now there was an 8th, and he was standing in the centre of the pentagram. He looked like a man, in an expensive yet nondescript suit. It was only his eyes that gave him away, still smouldering red with the fires of hell. The Magister wiped the blood from his knife and approached the circle slowly. "Well," the demon asked, "I haven't got all day, you know." The Magister hesitated, perhaps slightly put off by the new arrival's relaxed attitude. Then he mustered his occult authority and proclaimed in sonorous tones, "Baal-Khazar, demon of the 2nd rank, servant of the pit, master of foretellers and soothsayers, by the rights of ancient and the bindings of the Edomites, we adjure thee," he proclaimed, raising his hands in a manner that he probably thought was dramatic, but looked more like he was signalling a touchdown. The demon rolled his eyes. "Well, yes, obviously. That was implied by all this," he said, waving his hand vaguely at the pentagram, candles, and robed figures. "What do you adjure me? Presumably you had something in mind and didn't just call me up here to have a chat." The hoods looked at each other. It was pretty clear that they hadn't done this before. Whatever they'd been expecting, it wasn't this. "We demand," the Magister started in his stentorian voice, then hesitated. Then he coughed. He looked like he sensed that the whole production was starting to slip away from him, but clearly he had a script, and he intended to stick to it. "We demand of you arcane knowledge. By Lucifer, by Lilith, in the name of Pandemonium and Dis, we command you to tell us." There was a pause, possibly for dramatic effect, possibly because the Magister realized that having put so much effort into the lead-up, anything he said now would be an anticlimax. "Yes," the demon said encouragingly. "What will be in the NVIDIA quarterly report?" You could have cut the tension in the air with a knife, which the goat would no doubt have preferred. 7 men waited with bated breath to see whether their transgressions against all the laws of man and God were about to pay off, like Hollywood producers on Oscar night. Baal-Khazar shrugged. "Oh, is that all? Net profits will be 12.3 billion, up 46% from the previous quarter. We done here?" Is that it?" "Is what it? You asked, I answered." "Yes, but..." The Magister hesitated. One of the other cultists spoke up. "We were expecting that you'd..." make it a bit more difficult for us. Answering riddles, something like that. Nvidia's price shall rise as high as the moon on the 5th night of June. Balcazar winced at this attempt at poetry, then shrugged. Yes, well, that's normally the sort of thing I'd do, but it's not worth the effort this time because, and I really can't stress this enough, I don't care. You don't care? Not in the slightest. This is just not the sort of thing that interests me. It's all a bit trite, to be honest. No offense, he said, like everyone who had ever used that phrase, clearly intending to be offensive. If you were a dark brotherhood seeking to unlock the secrets of blasphemous sorcery to make yourselves gods amongst men, then I might actually take an interest. But this? Well, put it this way. For me, this is like being a classically trained Shakespearean actor having to sit through a kid's school play. Well, that was uncalled for, one of the cloaked figures said, a little peevishly. No, the design of robes are uncalled for. Why does Armani even have a range of hooded cloaks anyway? They make them for orgies, one of the other cultists volunteered cheerfully. My wife and I have a matching set. Circling back around to the focus of the summoning, the Magister said, writing down before he said meeting. You're saying that Nvidia will see a 46% rise in profits this quarter? You're really just going to give it to us as easily as that? Yep. Hey, since we're here, Tesla is going to be down 20%. Goldman Sachs is going to have a surprise rally starting at $3.90 before topping out at $4.50 a share, and oil prices are going to rise by $10 a barrel. Oh, come on, now you're just fucking with us, one of the cultists said, crossing his arms. It can't be that simple. There has to be a catch. No catch. Scout's honor, Balcazar said, giving them the three-fingered salute. You know how the summoning works. I can't lie. That's right, the Magister confirmed. The ritual compels the demon to answer truthfully. That's why there's usually all that chicanery with the riddles and stuff, to stick to the letter of the rules while still being as unhelpful as possible. Which, like I said, is exactly what I would do if I cared, the demon said, tapping his feet. But I don't, so you get a freebie this time. Now, are we done here? The hooded figures looked at each other again. You're not even going to try and tempt us? One of them asked, sounding almost disappointed, as if he'd been looking forward to at least window shopping the treasures on offer for his soul. Balcazar raised an eyebrow. You guys work on Wall Street. I think it's pretty much a given that we're going to be seeing you down below sooner or later. Not really much for me to do here. Well, I guess, the Magister started. I mean, that's it, isn't it? Time to send him back. We've got what we wanted, right? I still think it's a trick, the cultist with his arms crossed said bluntly. It can't be the spell. We shouldn't let him go. Get him to give us more. There was a hubbub of voices for a moment, as the cultists all started trying to shout over each other, and suspicion, greed, and the pressing desire of one cultist to end the summoning so he could go to the bathroom, all vied against each other. Then the Magister put up his hands. Okay, enough, he shouted, and the cultist started to simmer down. He's answered our question. We've got as clear an answer as we're going to get. There's no reason to keep him here. I still think we should pump him for more information, said one of the greedier cultists. Well, if you really want to know more secrets, Balcazar said, we could always discuss who's been sleeping with whose wives. Never mind, the cultist mumbled. Right, the Magister said firmly, clinging onto his control over the situation by the very tips of his fingers. Then we're all agreed. We're done here. He looked around the circle, and one by one the hoods nodded. He looked back at Balcazar. By the ancient compacts between the Lord of Damnation and his servants, we have summoned thee, and we have bound thee, and we have compelled thee to offer forth thine secrets. Now, by the ancient oaths of Akkad and the bindings of Al-Hazret, we have heard thine words. Balcazar rolled his eyes and made the rotating hand gesture for, "Let's move this along, shall we?" The Magister sighed. This had been a very trying experience, in ways he hadn't been expecting. "All right, let's just get this done. We all remember the banishment ritual?" There was a round of nods. "Okay then. A 1, a 2, a 1, 2, 3, 4. As the chant started and began to ramp up, the trace of a smile began to spread across Balcazar's face. Partly because this whole farce was finally over, but mostly because they'd taken the bait. If he'd answered with the riddle, they would have analysed it to hell and back, metaphorically speaking, but they would have been confident in their results. After all, that was all in the game. But cooperating? They hadn't expected that, and it set the gnawing worm of paranoia loose in their mind. It just so happened that one of the men present here knew someone at Goldman Sachs. He would make discreet inquiries with this person, just using the information as a benchmark to judge how far to trust Balcazar's other answers. Although the man with the friend at Goldman Sachs wouldn't touch their stock himself, that would be insider trading after all. 3 of the other robed idiots here tonight would make massive bets on it. Enough to draw the SEC's attention, given that everyone was currently expecting the stock to tank. The Goldman Sachs employee could be linked to them through his friend, and because he was a nervous sort who folded as soon as he was put in a room with an SEC investigator, he'd mentioned he might have let certain details slip. They'd never find an actual paper trail, but all 4 men involved had provably collaborated on stock trades, and that was enough. After all, there was no rational explanation for their sudden good fortune. Once the first conviction loomed, all 7 of the cultists would turn on each other one by one, hoping to stay out of jail by pointing their finger at their compatriots' other dubious dealings. Fines would be levied, marriages would fall apart, careers would go down in flames. Half of them will go to jail anyway. In a very short time, every man in this room will be ruined by their own greed, cowardice, and betrayals. Balcazar just managed to halt in his laughter until the banishment spell finished in a flare of candlelight. Really, his job was almost too easy sometimes.